Dr. Marketing Tips, paging Dr. Marketing Tips. Dr. Marketing Tips, you're needed in the marketing department.
Welcome to the Dr. Marketing Tips Podcast, your prescription to the answers you seek to grow your medical practice easier, better, and faster. This show is all about connecting practice administrators and medical marketing professionals with peers working in practices, learning from experiences, making mistakes, and sharing successes. Let's get started.
Hey there, welcome to the Dr. Marketing Tips Podcast. I am Jennifer.
And I'm Corey.
And today we're going to talk about 1-800 contacts, and they have sued Warby Parker over search advertising. And that's not all we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about copyright infringement. We're going to talk about some best practices and kind of the common thread when it comes to digital advertising. And then we're going to talk about keeping up with the latest trends and what that means to your medical practice. So there's a bunch we're going to talk about, but let's start with this article that came out in Digital News Daily back on August 20th of 2021. So basically what has happened is 1-800, the title of the story is 1-800 Contacts sues Warby Parker over search advertising. Now, what actually happened is Warby Parker, which is an eyeglass company, ran some digital ads that to the average consumer, 1-800 Contacts thinks that it looked like their ads and their landing page. And Warby Parker was just kind of jumping on that bandwagon. But when you dive a little bit into the story here, 1-800 Contacts actually has a history of suing companies when they feel as if their copyrights have been infringed upon. And 13 of the last 15 companies who they have sued have actually settled out of court. Then came Lens.com, and Lens.com actually didn't settle. In fact, they won an FTC ruling on the basis of an antitrust violation. 1-800 Contacts went back to court and back to the FTC, and it's been going back and forth between the appellate courts and the FTC and courts all over the place. But basically, judges across the country have struggled with questions involving trademarks in search ads for more than a decade. Even Google has prevailed in several lawsuits alleging that they wrongly allowed a trademark term to trigger pay-per-click ads because they've had several advertisers bringing this up. And it's really inconsistent between the judges on what these rulings are. So long story short, soon after the FTC initially sued 1-800 Contacts, the company, along with their competitors, they entered into this restrictive search ad agreements. They ended up being sued by the consumers in Utah. And I say all of that to say that all of those companies agreed to settle for $48 million, with 1-800 Contacts agreeing to pay $15 million because of all these lawsuits. So with all that said, that's pretty ballsy that 1-800 Contacts is going to use that as their strategy. And, I just think it's a little bit crazy.
It is a little bit crazy, but I think it's also smart. And, it's not really that uncommon of a practice either. We see a lot that people bid on other practices' names. That happens actually quite a bit. And I'm sure that for our listeners here, if you were to do a search in your area of your competitors, or if you search your own name, you'll see that some of your competitors are actually bidding on your name, even if you're just a mom and pop one provider practice. So it's pretty common.
Yeah, and strategically, take out the fact that it's this international brand of 1-800 Contacts. Strategically, this is kind of a plan for a lot of organizations. We see it outside of search advertising. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, we got this cease and desist letter saying that we had poached some content from somebody's website. And when we went back and looked at it, it was nowhere near similar to the content on their website. And it was like a blanket letter that was being sent out just to try to get you to take down competing content. And we've seen that with photo violations, where they allege that you've stolen their photo and you clearly haven't, or content violations. And now we're seeing it at a much larger scale in the digital ad space. Yeah,
absolutely. And, it's funny you bring up that example from a couple of weeks ago. And that's just, it's really a scam to get people to either pay to make this go away because they're a little scared, and it's written in legalese, right? So it's kind of intimidating. But yeah, in the digital side, we see it quite a bit. And I think where maybe there is a misstep here, and there's a couple things, we can get into this a little bit later, but what people need to know is that if it's a really big brand like 1-800-Contacts, their name is probably trademarked. And if it's trademarked, you can't use that in your ad copy. You can use it as a keyword. So if Warby Parker said 1-800-Contacts is a key phrase that they want to bid on in Google Ads, that's totally fine. But I think where Warby kind of took a step too far, if you look at some of the information that was in that article, is they used it in their ad copy. And when you went to the landing page, they made it look similar to 1-800-Contacts. And that's a bridge too far. So even if you're bidding on a competitor's name, where you can get into kind of a minefield is if you have your landing page look similar to their brand or an offer that's very similar to their offer. And that's, I think, was the tipping point for this thing to happen.
Yeah, totally. And I think let's take a step back too, because this is interesting, and I think it's a valid way to try to gain space on Google, is to, you run ads, you do everything you can, and of course you're negatively bidding against your competitors. But let's go back and talk about Warby Parker, because I actually was reading that Warby Parker was about to go public this week. And I thought, let me go ahead and grab some shares of Warby Parker, send it over to my financial person. He goes, who the hell is Warby Parker, Jen? And I'm like, I wonder if anybody even knows who Warby Parker is if you don't wear glasses or contacts. And so let's take a step back. Corey, who is Warby Parker and what's their story?
Yeah, so they're really, they're kind of like a retailer that's looking to disrupt this space. They offer contacts and glasses, and they'll send them to you. You can kind of try on different pairs and see what fits, what doesn't, and then send them back. So their whole thing is their eyewear is meant to, look stylish, be affordable, and you're able to purchase it in a totally different way. So you can kind of circumvent the traditional ways of going into like a lens crafters or something like that, and checking out the different frames and the styles. Warby actually lets you do that all online, and they have this really cool AR technology where you can actually kind of digitally put the frames on your face and see how they look, and then you can select a few that you actually want to try at home, and then choose one and send the others back. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think the story there is that these behemoths have been kind of sitting around, business as usual, didn't adjust and make adapt to changing technologies and the way that consumers are shopping. And then you have a startup like Warby Parker come in, completely change the game with the way that people are purchasing glasses and contacts. And then they start using the same kind of digital strategies to start chipping away at their competitors. And then their competitors start flipping out. And the best way that they can go after them is to use the fact that they're so big and they have a lot of lawyers and try to get everyone tied up in court. And I just find it interesting because I think too, like between 2004 and 2013, 1-800-Contacts sued or threatened to sue at least 14 competitors for alleged trademark infringement, arguing that it's the trademark violated when rivals use the phrase 1-800-Contacts to trigger a paid search ad. And this is standard practice. We use people's names in digital search when we're going after our competitors.
Right. Yeah. And so the basic answer is yes, you can use other folks, their names in your search keywords. If it's trademarked, it's a little murky. Usually Google Ads will automatically block a trademark term in ad copy. But some places and creative writers, you're able to kind of skirt that algorithm. And then what'll happen is exactly what we're seeing here, where the competitive company, if they're paying attention, that holds that trademark, they're going to file a complaint and get your ad removed. So you can use a competitor's name or a trademark as a keyword, but not an ad copy. And that's one way to kind of avoid this. But as far as, the practices that we work with, the independent subspecialists, because a lot of these, the names are not trademarked. So what you'll see is that your competitors are using your name, and you can in fact use their name when you're setting up Google Ads campaigns. So what will happen is if you are, Dr. Smith's podiatrist, you may see that podiatry associates will come up when someone searches your name. You can do the same thing to them. And when someone types that into Google, your ad will come up, even if they're looking for your competitor's practice. So you'll show up in that top 1 or 2 spaces as an ad result. So that's what we're talking about here.
Hey guys, Corey here, co-host of the Dr. Marketing Tips podcast, and I wanted to interrupt this episode just for a minute to tell you about Insight Training Solutions. So Insight Training Solutions is an ongoing employee engagement and training platform for your medical practice, meaning employees can log on and take these medical practice specific trainings whenever and wherever they are. And each training is meant to increase employee engagement, improve practice reputation, and develop some patient service mindsets. If we're being honest, something that we all know some of the employees may lack. Not calling anybody out by name, but one of the cool things about Insight Training Solutions is they're always developing new content, and they just released 10 steps to a phenomenal patient experience, where you'll learn how to create a phenomenal patient experience, strengthen job security, and discover customer service secrets for your entire team. So this course is in addition to the other ones they already have, which include communication across generations and how to understand today's multi-generational workforce, and how to develop overall patient experience. This is another course, the new approach to customer service. We've also got 8 ways to wow patients, and you can sign up for a free trial to see what everything is about at insighttrainingsolutions.io. That's insighttrainingsolutions.io, or just Google Insight Training Solutions. You'll be glad you did.
I wonder, and this might be a conversation for a different episode, but I wonder if you used the trademark insignia in your copy, if that's the difference in the violation. If you said 1-800-CONTACTS with a little TM next to it, if that passes muster. And then I wonder separately, if I'm a practice, knowing my doctors the way I know them, they will trademark their names for $375 is what it takes to go for a trademark. And they'll trademark their names and then keep their competitors from searching negatively against them. So I wonder if there's a strategy there at play. Different conversation for a different day. Because what I really want to talk about is the fact that Warby Parker is killing it. And, you've got these old behemoths that are not adapting the way that they need to keep market share. And they took their eye off the ball. And you've got these upstarts like Warby Parker who have met people where they are with the technology that they want to make purchases, especially if you look at the last year. And, it just kind of reminds me of other brands that used to be here that kind of went away, just like normal ones. Like, remember Border Books when you'd walk into the bookstore?
Yep.
I got a Barnes & Noble mega store down the street from my house, and they're shutting doors because, the behemoth is gone. Like, they're done. Remember Blockbuster? You might be too young for Blockbuster, Corey, but Blockbuster was the Shazazz. I mean, it was the place that you went on Friday. You picked up your
I was
movies.
there every Friday. Every Friday.
I don't even watch real TV anymore. Thank you, Netflix.
Right.
Remember Toys R Us? I hear they're coming back, but they died. Amazon took over. And remember, you may not remember this one. Remember Tower Records when you used to go into a record store?
Or Sam Goody, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or you go to Best Buy and like half the store was CDs.
Yeah, and now Best Buy is basically like a showroom for Amazon. You
That's
just go and you're like, ooh, that TV looks good. Then you turn around and get it delivered from Amazon.
And so it used to be like you were a brick and mortar, just like you were a medical practice, and maybe you offered some things that were more of like the digital world, like telemedicine or online appointment scheduling or something like that. But now a lot of it starts in the digital world and then trickles into brick and mortar. Amazon is doing, we all know what Amazon is successful for, but now they're trying these little like walk-in grocery stores where you actually go in and it ties to your phone on your account. When I was in Seattle this year, I walked into one of those Amazon stores because you can just walk in and pick stuff up. There's no cashiers, there's nothing, so they're going from digital to that. And Warby Parker is another example. They started online. They started with this app-based technology that allowed you to see what the glasses would look like on your face. And now they have stores. They're opening one in our community here in Central Florida. They're opening one over at the Mall of Millennia. Now they're taking their online presence into the traditional brick and mortar. And I think there's a lesson to be learned there. So, we're of a different generation, but given the way that your shopping preferences, because for people listening, Corey's a millennial. He is of that age where he is starting to make healthcare decisions for his family and for himself, for his parents, and then also for himself and his family. And given the choice, Corey, because you're the ideal patient population, which kind of eyeglass brand would you work with? Would you want a Warby Parker? Would you want a Lens Crafters or a 1-800 Contacts or one of those guys?
I would go Warby hands down. I wouldn't even think twice about it. It's so convenient to be able to purchase and have this whole experience from the comfort of my home. There's transparent pricing, which is awesome. And I know I can kind of book everything online and do it all there. I don't actually have to talk to a human if I don't want to, but I still have the option to do that if I need something, or if I decide that a human is going to actually help this go a little bit smoother. That option is there, but it's not the primary. And for me and for a lot of people that I know, they'd rather not talk to somebody. They don't have to. They'd rather just sort of self-service. See what they look like, make the decision, and then be done with it. Send it back and never have to leave the couch, really.
Yeah. One of the things I find interesting too is I bet if you kind of pull the curtains back, it's the same product. I have a feeling glasses are just glasses. They're not sexy. So when you go to Warby Parker's website, though, it looks sexy, but it's still probably the same product.
Right. And if it's not the same product, it's one of those things where, their frames that they're designing with their name on it is going to look exactly like something that you can get at a Lens Crafters and whatnot. So if you really don't care about the brand name, then you'll never know the difference.
Absolutely. So, we do a lot of work in the eye care space, and these practices, the ophthalmologist and the optometrist, that we work with, they make a lot of money on selling glasses and contacts as an ancillary service. So what do you think they can kind of learn from this story and take away?
I think the one big takeaway is that it's okay to bid on your competitors. And in fact, it's really common, and they're probably doing it to you. But just if you're going to do that, know that, like I said, they're most likely going to do that to you. So make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze. In other words, make sure that the spend is worth the return and any of the feathers that you may ruffle. So if you're going to go about this as a strategy for your digital Google Ads campaigns, that's perfectly fine. But just know that you may piss off somebody, or you may get a phone call from another practice where you've had this good relationship with, and they're going to ask a couple of questions about what you're doing. So as long as you're prepared for those things, it's a perfectly acceptable and very common strategy. Where it gets murky is if you're going up against someone like 1-800 Contacts, that not only we know that they trademark their name, but they have a history of suing people that are doing things that they don't approve of.
Yeah, I kind of think that from an ad standpoint, there's specifically a lesson to learn, but I think there's a bigger lesson here. And that is that if you're a practice who hasn't made some updates over the years, consumers are changing preferences, and what it looks like when you walk into the office makes a big difference. What the website looks like and feels like makes a big difference. And
convenience.
If ever you're short of ideas, you can look at what organizations that are really leading the pack, especially where they started in the digital space. You can look at what they're doing and you can emulate that yourself. You don't have to come up with a super fresh idea. You can't poach someone's ideas, but you certainly can look at something someone else is doing, create a swipe file, and then use that for inspiration to make your marketing great.
Yeah. Jen, do you think that there's a kind of a play for medical practices here? I mean, just, outside of the digital space, like kind of what you were saying with referral patterns or anything?
Yeah, I think the play first is just take a look at the strategy that somebody like a Warby Parker is implementing, and reverse engineer it to make it work for you. And then separately, I think that if Warby Parker is now going from being digital to brick and mortar, which I indicated that they are because I did a little bit of digging on them, and they're starting to open in every major shopping center, like in the right markets, then maybe there is an opportunity to partner with somebody like a Warby Parker. If let's say you're an ophthalmology practice or whatnot, and you're not selling lenses direct. So maybe you can partner with them, get access, and I don't know if they do this, but get access to their technology maybe. Maybe there's a white label option of using their Warby Parker app-based technology to put the lens on your, using an app. And then you could sell Warby Parker glasses and lenses direct from your location and take a cut of what you sell. I have a feeling they probably have some kind of sales associate or affiliate agreement. And there's an opportunity to create some referral relationships that you probably never thought about before. And if you get access to that technology, it just helps you be at the right place in the right time, delivering what consumers are already asking for.
Well, yeah, and in addition to the technology too, if they're going to open up all these brick and mortar stores, glasses and contacts aren't going to help everybody. So they're going to need to refer the people that come in there somewhere. So why not you?
Well, yeah. And also, we have a large ophthalmology practice that we work with that's in 20,000 square feet of space in a shopping center. Why not reach out to a Warby Parker and open up a retail location inside of your very large ophthalmology practice?
You already got the space. Yeah. Yeah,
you've got the space. I mean, look at the retail trends. It's these pop-up locations. So why not do a pop-up inside of a medical practice, get a cut of that or get some lease space and use it as an ancillary service. They win, and it's the same patient base. It's a chance to really elevate your brand game and also help them achieve whatever it is they're achieving.
Yeah. And I think too, the thing to remember is they do a really good job, but at the end of the day, they're just an eyeglass company, right? I mean, they're selling the same stuff that anybody else is doing, but they have great branding and they have this one differentiator that they've sort of created their own niche out of. They have taken this and run with it. And now they are, one of the biggest in the country. They're getting ready to go public, like you were just saying, but really they're just selling eyeglasses, just like you're providing a service for your patients. So, what's the one thing that you can do to kind of differentiate you from the competitors? I think that's one of the big takeaways here, in addition to knowing what some of the big guys are doing. It's owning one thing that helps make you unique and then using that as your sort of tent pole.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you a hint to anyone that's listening. It's not your double board certification. That's not your one thing, because every doctor, for the most part,
joke about that all the time. Yeah.
Every doctor, don't put the picture of yourself and your board certification on the homepage of your website above the fold, because that's not what people are looking for. That's another episode.
Right. Everybody went to school. Everybody has a certification.
Everybody's got a white lab coat. We all get it.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So back to 1-800-CONTACTS. What do you think our listeners can learn here from the way that they've gone about things?
Yeah. So I think the 1-800-CONTACTS is kind of the, it's kind of the Goliath here in this story. They're the older, bigger brand that isn't as nimble and doesn't shift and change as much. So I think one thing that our listeners can kind of take away, especially if you're a smaller practice, is take advantage of your size and the fact that you can have an idea and you can try something very quickly. You can see if it works, and then you can double down on it. Or if it doesn't work, you can move away from that. Because you're not this giant conglomerate, or you're not associated with a hospital. There's not a ton of red tape, and it doesn't take 9 months to get an idea off the ground. The first thing you can do to run is take a step. Start walking. Just put one foot in front of the other and try something. And you never know where that can go and what that can do for your bottom line.
Yeah, I think that's all great points. And I think that's about all we've got time for today. So again, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Corey.
Thanks for joining us on the Dr. Marketing Tips podcast. Thanks a bunch.
Talk soon, guys.
Thanks for listening to the drmarketingtips.com podcast. If there's anything from today's show you want to learn more about, check out drmarketingtips.com for our podcast resource center with all the notes, links, and goodies we mentioned during the show. If you're not already a subscriber to our show, please consider pressing the subscribe button on your podcast player so you never miss one of our future episodes. And if you haven't given us a rating or review yet on iTunes, please find a spare minute and help us reach and educate even more of our medical practice peers. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Doctor's orders.